Dear students, good morning. Let us start the discussion on 20th January 2016 newspaper. The first article is related to the caste in Indian society. Now the article progresses like this. It explained the conflict between the constitutional values and the social values in the country. The next it took certain examples from our ancient history and the great epics, that is related to the Ekalavya and also Satyakama. These are the two stories how the caste is entrenched into our minds and day-to-day living is explained in this particular article. But we try to understand this article in a close relation to the syllabus. Rather than moving across these examples, etc., we can define this article to the specific scope of caste in Indian society and the features of Indian society in that particular syllabus of social issues. So in this context, the Indian thought on social structure and moral order, it is very much well placed around the caste. The great epics of Ramayana, Mahabharata, they are, one way or the other way, have strong relations with the caste. A Brahmanical system was established from very early days. In this context, even after independence, more than half a century of independence, we still suffer from this lacunae of the caste identity. So, the constitution has provided for a legal equality and also aspired for the socio-economic equality. So, in this context, the social inequalities, they are coming squarely in conflict with the constitutional values of equality. So in this context, these social inequalities are also perpetuating into the institutions of higher learning. So the access to the knowledge, power, they are all determined by one's association with the caste in the Indian society. So if you see the relationship between individual, society and the state, if the power of the state is occupied by the elements that primarily depend upon the vested anarchical view of the society, then automatically the caste gets much deepened. So understand, the communalization of the societal space is one thing. Casteization of the societal space is another thing. So in this context, the vested interests, the rightist factions are any of the power structure of the state, if it is occupied by the vested interest, it ultimately leads to the entrenchment of the caste. That is what this article tries to talk about. So in this context, Ekalavya, he was not given access to education because he did not belong to the upper class. Similarly, the Satyakama Jabali, he was given access to education once he was purified as a Brahmin. So in this context, the institutions of higher learning shall be the agents of change. So they shall not be occupied by the vested interests, and the discussions on empowerment and equality shall not be reduced to entitlement and exclusion. So it is exclusion in Indian society not just is based on the caste. You have caste, religion, gender. So entitlement to the power is also intricately connected to the caste, religion and gender. So entitlement and exclusion discussion, it has to become much wider and the scope shall not be reduced to the reservations. The next is the urban spaces in Mumbai. So it is about Mahalakshmi Racecourse Road and converting that into Mumbai Central Park and the political opinions about that. So over than that, our topic will be more related to the urbanization. So in this context, the urbanization and decreasing social spaces is causing a major challenge over here. So the public spaces and scarcity for the space of engagement among the citizens is decreasing in the urban areas. In Mumbai, it comes to less than 3%. In various cities, it is greater than 40-50%. For example, Adelaide in Australia. So, right use of the urban spaces and balancing the growth needs of the urban areas is a major challenge before the urban governance today. So infrastructure development, creating urban amenities is as equal important as protecting the urban spaces. So in this context, innovative solutions are very much necessary. So the momentum which we see with regard to the protection of this RA colony and Mahalakshmi race course, they fall very much into this particular argument. Growing crackdown on the civil society, we know that the civil society is very critical for educating the masses, generation of the awareness among the masses about the governmental laws and policies, and creating of a public opinion, accountability, and transparency in the functioning of the government. So in this context, recently in Rajasthan there are attacks on MKSS headed by Aruna Roy. The organization was taking about an awareness session related to the Suchana Evam Rojgar Ka Adhikar Abhiyan. So it is also called Javbedi Atra. So now, with this Atra, the local political elements, who is an MP, who is supported by the governmental system, tried to attack this NGO. So if you see the developments from UPA 2 to the NDA, the resentment against the civil society is increasing, and the ruling elite are expecting the civil society to tune itself to the temperament of the government of the day. But in a democratic society, the civil society has a critical role to educate the masses, to question the policies of the government. In this context, the growing intolerance is reducing the democratic space, and it is delegitimizing the very stakeholders who shall express their opinion about the functioning of the government. So in this context, the government shall raise its tolerance towards the functioning of the civil society and provide it the necessary freedoms to operate. Now coming to the health topic in our syllabus, we have two important articles. One is NFHS 4th survey. So once in 10 years generally they do this particular survey. National Family Health Survey 4. What it says is, in India, the undernutrition has decreased, and added to that, mothers are able to access the antenatal care, which has decreased the infancy deaths in the country. And on the worst side, among the adolescents, malnutrition, or else I will say overnutrition and obesity, they are on rise. And the communicable diseases, they are decreasing, but non-communicable diseases are increasing randomly. The positive aspect is, in the first round of the states, the 13 plus states, almost most of the states other than Bihar, Madhya Pradesh and Meghalaya, they reached the replacement level of the fertility. So that's a very positive development. And finally, the death rate also has fallen, and from 67 to 51 per thousand live births, which is a good development. It shows that the situation is increasing in the country. Now, the second thing is preventable stillbirths according to the Lancet. These are on rise across the world, and India stands high. The major reason for this is lack of proper access to the nutrition, and also most stillbirths occur with regard to the middle income and lower income groups. It means the poverty is the major reason. The poverty, lifestyle and maternal age, these are the factors that are increasing the stillbirths. So these need to be addressed. The next is widening inequality gap. It's a very good argument for the capitalism. Now, as the world says that it is striving for equality, the inequality is on rise. If you see this particular graph over here, initially in 2010 it was 388 rich people's wealth is equivalent to half of the globe's poor people. Now it is just 62 people's wealth is equivalent to the half of the world's poor people. And second is, most of the poor countries' wealth is stocked in the offshore assets. It means in Africa, more than 30% of its wealth is stocked in the tax havens. It means that among the trillions of dollars that are existing with the tax havens, there is equivalent to tax avoidance in the developing countries. So next is, the average annual income of the poorest, 10% has actually fallen, and the average incomes of the rich people, they have increased. The total assets value of the poor has decreased, the total asset value of the rich has increased. It means the existing path of the progress of the world is more favorable to the rich rather than to the poor. It is raising the inequalities rather than decreasing them. So the three-pronged approach is, we have to invest more on the public services like health, education, etc. Minimum wage rates have to be ensured. The minimum wage rates have to be raised to make the increased income levels for the poor and weak. Finally, the tax havens, the tax laws have to be made stringent to avoid stocking of the money in the tax havens. IMF cuts the global growth forecast. What are the reasons for this? So it has cut the world output to 3.4% from the existing 3.6. And the major reasons for this are, the emerging markets are slowing down and there is currency volatility, and China's new normal and China's decreasing growth, fall in commodity prices, and finally America rising the interest rates. So American US Fed is moving away from the accommodative monetary policy, so which leads to the shift of the capital. So all these reasons are going to decrease the growth rate. It has led to the IMF to reforecast its growth rate. Now with regard to the bad debts and NPAs, the non-performance assets, recently the SBI chief Arundhati Bhattacharya, she said everyone shall take, including the regular, shall take the responsibility for the bad debts. So in this context, what has to be done is our focus. So a clear analysis of worthiness of an individual for credit has to be made. And second is, we have to bring in a strong NPA recovery mechanism. Third, for the long-term infrastructure investments, we have to create long-term debt markets rather than pushing them onto the public sector banks. So this is one thing about the bad debts. Now Patel, Mr. Suresh Bhai Patel, he was attacked by a police officer in Madison, Alabama, and it was led to the spinal injuries. So there are a series of incidents where the excessive police force is used against the minorities. Clearly, when the minorities of a particular area, they fall between 3 to 4%, the actual number of the police via cases and police use of the force are greater than 15% over them and the African Americans. There is a brutal killing of the African Americans in the police firing which is witnessed in Chicago and many other states. Now, a progressive state can be identified with the police force that is more sensitive to the needs of the minorities, are concerned about the way of life of the minorities. So this excessive use of the force, which is becoming a part of the American culture, shows the failure of the American state to rein in the police force against the minorities. It shows lack of maturity in the functioning of the state institutions to handle the minorities and their issues. And the Suresh Bhai Patel's case is squarely falls into this situation in America. So these are the important articles for today. Thank you very much and all the best. So I am correcting your answers. Try to post them before 11 o'clock because I am signing off before 11 o'clock. Again I have to start my day a bit early to make this video. So try to post your answers before 11 o'clock. And again, one more thing is, more and more answer writing will definitely improve your skills of presentation. And final request is this. I will be posting my answers once in a week. I'll try to figure out certain time for this. And weekly at least 2 reports of ARC or 2 videos of ARC will be posted for you. Thank you very much and all the best.